welcome to LedgerCast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard, and I'm excited today because we have the man, the myth, and the legend back, Josh Olswich. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Brian. Every time I hear you say my name, I'm just like, it catches me off guard because it's so correct.
Well,
wait, did someone just say that correctly besides myself?
You know,
Anyway.
I feel like we know each other now, so I should know how to say your name.
But it's so, I appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you know, this episode is brought to you by Delta. They're our partners for the LedgerCast. You can visit ledgerstatus.com/Delta to try the all-in-one cryptocurrency tracking portfolio app. You can use Delta on your iPhone or Android and on Windows or Mac desktops. Better track your Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoin, and ICO investments. Always have your portfolio at your fingertips. Track multiple portfolios. Sync your exchanges and wallets for easier tracking and more with Delta. I track 3 separate portfolios for Delta myself, and I love it. Go to ledgerstatus.com/Delta to learn more, and thanks to Delta for being a LedgerStatus partner. So, man, we're going to talk about the market today, obviously. The people have been begging for Carpe Noctem to come on and give the July update. 33K by July.
Exactly. It's not Carpe Noctem anymore. It's 33K by July.
Now the now quite infamous 33K by July. How's the salt in your world?
It's fine. I mean, I knew that it was obviously a gamble putting that as my name, number one. And that number two, as soon as it failed the trend, even if I changed my name, like I'd still get crap for it. So I just left it. It doesn't matter. Like, look, if you're not following me on Twitter, then I don't know what to tell you. But it was all telegraphed as far as not making that move by July. By the time it broke the certain trend, and you can say you're an expert, you knew by December that it wasn't going to hit 33K, whatever. But it's just it was just a pitchfork.
Yeah, you made the prediction quite a while ago, and this was the most likely outcome you've been saying for several months. So it's not like a big shocker in that regard.
Right. The collective IQ of crypto Twitter is like 50, I think. It's definitely gone down. It's just like people who've lost money and are just super bitter now. None of this is investment advice anyway. So just gotta put
that's
that
right.
out
Thanks for making sure that's clear for everybody.
It's funny when you said Delta too. I was like, crap, you got like the airline Delta.
Nope. Even better. The portfolio tracking company.
Even better.
So it's funny though, because while we may not be 33K by July, we did defend a local bottom for the third time, or I guess a yearly bottom for the third time around that. Technically, we swept the lows from the first run down below 6K, but we've now touched in that 6K region, 5,700 to the middle one was around 6,400 as a low. So that general region was defended for the third time, and it looks like we've got a mild uptrend here. We're still below the Kijun for people keeping track, but we're having some mean reversion going right now. So you've been writing about this and thinking about this, but how are you approaching the market from, I guess, like a trading perspective or just generally looking at things?
Yeah, so the one thing I'm obsessively checking is weekly volume. And as long as that continues to decline, I'm not concerned about long-term bearishness. Because if we keep going lower on less volume, that just says we're it's a div, obviously, but it's momentum's petering out in the bearish department. So less and less people are selling. Whatever, it's going lower. Books are thin everywhere. Things happen. But until there's a break of that volume, that just sort of says either capitulation or the direction is resolved. I mean, there's a giant falling wedge we could be in. There's a bunch of stuff that until the volume moves something, that it's just sort of, it is what it is. Just sideways barding, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. The general action all year has felt so different on the short. Rather on the short time frames. Mm-hmm. These sideways ranges, and then a $300-$400 candle, which has been named the BART, So
Mhm.
it's just been so different than what I'm accustomed to from 2017 Bitcoin.
Well, yeah,
It doesn't
2017 was the Ron Popeil year. It was the set it and forget it year.
right.
Obviously, everybody wants to return to that because all you do is you sit, buy and hold. Like that's the MO of the market. It's people now who lose all their money, and they try to trade this sideways zero volume garbage instead of waiting, which is what they should be doing. Waiting for setups, waiting for things to be obvious. Like, yeah, it's sideways, it's down. There's certain things you can play on low time frames. Like we've played a few inverted head and shoulders, even in February. Like there was a giant move there, but for the most part, all the high time frame stuff has kind of failed and just gotten wrecked and reversed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've mostly been looking at any divergences I can find to try to discover when there may be an adjustment or a high volatility range. Because if you're still playing altcoins at all, which I still am because I'm an idiot, then when Bitcoin starts to get high volatility to the downside, it can be pretty rough. But there are at least isolated opportunities when Bitcoin is not super highly volatile. So if it's either slowly bleeding down or slowly grinding up, then there have been some opportunities in altcoins. Although on the whole, I think the better strategy thus far has been purely around capital preservation and being, I would say, somewhat minimally exposed to altcoins. But there's always something running, and I've seen people who've been able to make some money during this market. So if you can learn, my personal thought would be if you can find some success trading in this market, when the market does turn in any way, you'll be well positioned and ready. So
for sure.
Are you finding yourself staying exposed, like you want to stay at the ready, or are you paying less attention in the summer months?
For the most part, I'm on high time frames and looking at things. It's like there's this inverted head and shoulders that's kind of a mess that's been developing over the past 2-3 weeks, maybe, on Bitcoin, which is like some of my favorite setups because they're super slow. It's pretty obvious when the breakout happens. The volume is there. It's got cloud signals on the 12-hour. Like it's perfectly set up to move higher. It follows the Wyckoff map. We'll see what happens, obviously, but it looks really good for a nice jump up here, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Altcoins, I'm up significantly in coinage and not as significantly in dollars. And to me, that's fine because, even if this isn't the bottom, I have a general feeling that it's going to be higher in 6 months than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that. I mean, the problem is if you're down in coin and dollars here, then you got to be taking a look in the mirror and saying, like, do I even need to be trading here? Do I just need to be sitting in cash and waiting?
Yeah. When you say that, are you saying relative to like April, May timeframes, or even more recently, just these last couple weeks?
Like from March on, I'm
okay.
Yeah, tracking from March on. Basically, if you've been short most of the time since March, you've been right. Just because it's been just giant, slow bleed down moves like for weeks. I'm just looking at this Wyckoff thing. I'm staring at it as I'm talking about this, just because it looks so good. But I mean, yeah, like you were saying, everything goes sideways, and then we just get this $300 drop.
Yeah,
out of nowhere. It's like any random time. It was sort of like 3 a.m. Eastern, which is like London. I think that was happening quite often. Now it's sort of kind of dropped off. CME futures rolled over into the new like bi-yearly contract, I think. I don't know what it's called, but it's like July to December or something.
Yeah, and that was a really funny timing because it was basically the bottom. So,
Yeah, and the top was basically the beginning, which is what
Right.
a lot of people had said at the time that was going to happen. Not
It's
me,
one of those-
but a lot of people.
it's one of those ones where it's a meme or whatever, but it's probably got the most weight behind it in terms of the short history that we have had institutional futures products. I mean, it's basically nailed some high time frame turnarounds. So we're up. It looks like $800 off that bottom, and $800 when you're at 6,000 is a fairly sizable move. That's been something that I found interesting too. Like people are acting like, $300, $400, $500 is not a big move, but it's not a big move for November or December when we were blowing off on the upside. But when you're ranging fairly tightly, sub 8K, then $300, $400, $500 are pretty big moves. And I think if you can take advantage of some of that volatility, then there's Bitcoin to be made, even if you're losing your dollar value along the way some.
Yeah, and those percentages get bigger as we go lower, obviously. And it's easier to move the book a higher percentage when we're lower because, especially now, there's just no volume. There's nothing going on,
Yeah. There was a report, and I need to give this guy a shout out because he's been pretty good on the old crypto Twitter. So there was this idea of CME volume being at a record high. And it sounded like you'd been studying this some too. But basically that was a Bitcoin high, correct? And the dollar value was basically the same. Is that how that works?
Yeah, you have to look at what the volume actually is. It's not actually Bitcoin, it's contracts, and the contracts change in value because it's 5 BTC worth of the dollar amount. So as we go down, the volume looks like it's going up when actually it's probably just the same. I mean, it could be increasing. I don't know. I haven't really looked at it, but you would need to like convert it somehow to check that.
Yeah. Well, there's this guy. He goes by Aurelius BTC on crypto Twitter. He's had some good threads trying to use this market to educate people through his Twitter threads. And he just did a quick analysis of the difference between the CME contract volume versus the USD volume and how it probably wasn't 100% accurate, but doesn't make it insignificant. But I'll link that up in the show notes so people can give that a read. It's worth checking out.
One thing I don't like about traditional futures markets is it's really hard to pull up the chart that I want to see on TradingView. Because like even with like oil and all this other stuff, there's like, because it's all separated by contract on TradingView. I don't remember like the actual ticker for the chart you want to see most of the time. So that's why it's hard to like find it. I don't know. It's just a rant.
Yeah, there's I think there's one.
It's like,
if you just track like BTC1 exclamation point, I think that one carries the history.
I thought that was the one, but then I saw someone showing a different ticker on another chart that looked like it had more information. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there may be additional volume information on the individual contracts, but that one has enough information for me at least for tracking to see how the chart changes because the traditional markets have gaps on the weekends similar to traditional other assets. And they do chart a little differently on that, so that's fascinating, and it'll probably become more interesting over time to see how that evolves.
Well, there was a comment like they aggregated some comments about the futures market somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but there's some report that came out, and somebody made some comment about changing it to Bitcoin settled versus cash settled. I have no clue if that'll ever happen, but I think that'd be more impactful. I think if we get like serious custodial solutions.
That's what I was about to say. The custodial solution seems to be one of the big themes of the year in terms of at least it being reported on people working on custodial solutions and there being a lot of effort in that situation and that being a catalyst for the institutional money coming in. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Some of the interviews that I've listened to it does seem like right now you either have to go with one of very few custodial players. I guess it's like Kingdom Trust is one of the big ones, and or you have to have like your own solution, or you have to use like one of Barry's things, Grayscale.
Yeah.
Grayscale Capital. They have what they've done is they've wrapped up their products, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum Classic or whatever their Zcash, and they've created traditional securities that people can invest in, but those securities are just wrappers of the cryptocurrency, and they have a lot of limitations to them. Like you have to hold them for at least a year, so it's only long-term position building. It's not a particularly tradable position, and other things like that make it a bit of a challenge. So as these custody issues come up, and if there is a contract that's able to be settled in the actual product and not in cash, then that can have perhaps a bigger impact on the underneath market. But like gold, for instance, it trades on a paper, a money contract. It's not like moving gold for the majority of the gold trading that you do. So
right, but that'd be harder to do, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly more feasible for Bitcoin to be traded in a good way. Of course, that means that maybe that's a good selling point for why Bitcoin's a better store of value than gold.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the traditional world feels about like having to own the underlying to trade it. If that's like a risk problem, because then you're always in a position. You know what I mean? You're either long or you're short, regardless of margin. You know.
Yeah. Well, you get into a lot of macro stuff if you talk about traditional metals, but I know in the gold world, that's like the type of stuff nation states get into. You know, like China and Russia are trying to gobble up all the physical gold in the world, and the paper traded gold means nothing and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's these enormous geopolitical implications around that. So obviously Bitcoin's not to that stage, but you could picture a world in the future where if Bitcoin is as big of an asset for a store of value, then the actual Bitcoin would equally be a interesting component of that.
Sure. Yeah.
So I want to dig into your bearish bugaloo.
Okay.
Looking at the word bugaloo, it doesn't feel right, but I'm gonna assume that's the way you spell it.
Isn't boogaloo like dance or like party or festive thing, right? Let's Google this.
Yeah,
I should have looked this up,
but I think it's bugaloo, not boogaloo.
Boogaloo comes up.
I think you pronounce it bugaloo, even if it looks like boogaloo.
It is a very southern word, from my understanding, right?
Probably.
It says it's a genre of Latin dance music popular in the 1960s.
Well, there you go.
Maybe it's not southern, but yeah, I just like the alliterations.
It is. It's perfectly enjoyable. I read it. It got my attention.
Well, that's good. That's good.
And confirmed, not clickbait. This was a media article that you put out. So can you give us the lowdown of just like, what were you looking to show in this, and what did you discover? Because you covered pretty much the entire landscape, not just Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah, I always try to find stuff that no one else is really talking about, because it helps me as a trader, and it's stuff I want to read, like something new. So yeah, I was looking at market cap, looking for just new visualizations for that. I really like this heat map for the quarter, because it really shows like overall Bitcoin sort of closed flat for the entire quarter, and some stuff was up massively, but some stuff was down massively, like NEO, 47% down for the quarter. So that's always just interesting to see like where things are sitting collectively. I thought the ICO stuff is actually super interesting. I didn't really realize that Ethereum has like 90% of the token volume, or the token market cap. There's that chart like midway through the article where it talks about the ERC20 share. So it just shows like the importance of ETH in the ICO token market.
Yeah.
at the moment.
That's
Whether or
a
not
lot.
whether or not that'll be maintained, I don't know. But
A lot of the other platforms are really working out their, I guess, token capabilities, right? So like Neo has the NEP5 tokens that, a past interview guest, Switch.io, is the first place you can even trade those. So that was one of the challenges, at least. And then I guess EOS is supporting all these different dApps and whatnot that have airdropped tokens. So those are mostly brand new as they just launched mainnet. And then I guess Tezos is going to have tokens too, right?
That's on you. I don't know.
I think
You're the Tezos expert.
I just bought it.
I've done nothing but
I just bought some blood. That's all I know.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of going on in the token stuff. Like, most of it fundamentally is trash, but it holds a lot of market share. Like 30 billion of the whatever. What is that? Like 10% of the total? I don't know what the total is right now. It's probably more than 10%.
Yeah.
Of the total market cap is just tokens.
And that's why, to me, I feel like the total market cap is kind of garbage, because
yeah, for sure,
there's no liquidity in any of those projects. And a lot of those projects are probably dead, but still carry a market cap, but no one can escape it anyway. So if something has no liquidity, the people that are the primary token holders can't sell it, then it's not really worth that to me. Making me personally believe that actually the drawdown we've had as a global market cap is probably much larger than we can visualize.
Yeah, I was hoping it'd be bigger, honestly. Like, I talked about this with a lot of people, but there's just so much scum that needs to be just cleaned away. Take like a Clorox wipe and just like get rid of it. But which is what I think drawdown would do.
How do you declare a token dead?
There's some article in Bloomberg. It's like 80% of ICOs are nearly zero or something.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'll try.
But yeah, they're not dead. I agree. Because as long as they're listed somewhere, they're.
That's my point. Like, how do you declare something completely dead? Because it's, a token it's stubborn. Like, it's going to have a little heartbeat even if it can't move or do anything, or there's no one working on it.
I mean, look at the old original like 10 coins, like Peercoin and Namecoin. Those are still around. They're not traded, but they're still around.
Yeah, they still technically exist.
Are they dead? Do they deserve to be a part of the market cap, total market cap?
But they're still there, right?
I mean, define there. Like, they have people holding them.
Yeah, like there's a blockchain for them, even if it would be easy to attack or hack or whatever else. I went to a terrible website for this Bloomberg article, like some scammy website that's not actually Bloomberg, but I'll link it up.
The blockchain has no transactions. Does it still have any value?
A lot of them do. And you wrote about EOS and how few transactions it had after it launched.
Even if you go now, it's got like one transaction per block. Blocks are like 2 per second or something, but nobody's using it. Yeah, I had to really avoid recency bias on this quarterly thing, because there's like hardly any memorable things that happened throughout the quarter to me, other than Consensus, which was just a bunch of nothing burger, really. Yeah.
You wrote about the lack of a consensus pump, but really the pump went into consensus and then failed, right?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, there were a bunch of like I said before, high time frame setups that just didn't complete and failed. Yeah, I don't know. Consensus was, for those of us who were there, not great, I think, and I said that in the article. But the networking is good. The actual conference is kind of just whatever. Because you can just watch most of it online anyway.
Yeah, I would have liked to be there to meet people.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I recommend, anybody who asks me, I recommend going and not going to the conference. Just going to the breakout or networking events and stuff like that, because you don't need to actually go in.
And we should take this moment to shill that we're going to be at a
That's
conference
right.
in DC. So if you go to blockchaindc.com, we're going to be doing a live show talking about being able to trade, whether it's a bull market or a bear market. So it's going to be a little bit of a 101 style talk about trading and being able to trade no matter the market conditions. But that should be fun. In addition to the conference, though, I'm looking forward to, and the reason I chose this one was basically I just wanted to go meet you and hang out in person. And there's several other people that I wanted to see in DC. So we're organizing a miniature meetup for a handful of people. To just be in DC. So if people are doing events, like you can go to a conference like this, or you can just go meet people in that area. Because I do think personally that meeting people in the ecosystem is really valuable to figure out what they're working on, they're building and whatnot.
Yeah, I went to that one last year, and I just mainly go to these to like people watch and listen to what other people are doing. There's really no like direct value for me or like anybody who's like super abreast with the situation. But there was some interesting ICO regulatory stuff coming out at that time.
That was the other reason I wanted to go to the one for DC is because I was, I am hopeful that perhaps the content will be centered some around the regulatory components, which I think are probably the most impactful. I'd like to take a quick break to thank Delta for being our partner for this episode of LedgerCast. If you go to ledgerstatus.com/Delta, you can learn more about them. But I hope that by now in this series of podcasts where Delta has been our partner, that you understand a little bit more about what they do. It is the best Bitcoin, ICO, and cryptocurrency portfolio tracker that you can use. You can use it on your desktop. You can use it on your mobile phone. They've got all sorts of stuff, and they are always updating and making it better and better. I've got it right here on my device, and there are some things that I just really love about it, and you get to know those features better over time. For instance, recently I've discovered that you can add a transaction to one of your portfolios, and if you put it on the wrong portfolio, you can actually move that transaction to the proper portfolio so that you don't have to do the whole rigmarole of deleting and re-adding. In the recent release, they also made a more condensed mode that I'm really enjoying myself, so that instead of the normal cards, it's all a little bit tighter if you've got more assets in your portfolio that you want to track. And of course, if you're not using the MyDelta public link, it's really fun. I've got that in my 100x trading Twitter account so that you can actually see the coins that I have in the 100x trading challenge right there and judge my performance, whether good or bad. If you haven't tried Delta before, go to ledgerstatus.com/Delta right now to check it out. Thanks so much to Delta for being a partner of LedgerCast. Hey y'all, this is Brian from Ledger Status, and I got somebody with me today because it's another great podcast in the crypto space that you should be paying attention to. They've been guests on the show before, but we want to do a cross promo to let you know that there are many great podcasts in this space, and I want to share the mic for a minute with my friend Aaron Lammer from the Coin Talk Show. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Brian. I should mention that you've also been on Coin Talk a couple times.
I have been on Coin Talk, and to be honest, every time I get a special shout out, I feel very happy for myself.
Well,
I'd put a notch on my belt anytime y'all mention me on your show, so I appreciate those.
I will say that a major difference between Coin Talk and Ledger Status, if you're thinking about which one to listen to, the Ledger Cast, that is, Brian knows way more about crypto than us, and we're much more willing to make fun of it than him. I think you'll go to a certain point, but you've got like a greater respect. So I think if you'd like to hear people who cover crypto in a more like sports talk, satirical manner, check out Coin Talk. We pretty much take all of our knowledge of TA from this show. So you'll hear a little bit of overlap, but we'll probably get most of it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, y'all talk about the ecosystem broadly, which I really like, and you are trying to purposefully address everything from kind of a layman's investor perspective. But you bring on fantastic guests. I'm very jealous of your ability to get great guests. So y'all do an outstanding job with that. I always say that it's my favorite podcast in the crypto space, despite myself.
And I always say the Ledgercast is my favorite, so I think we're evened up. And I will also say that myself and my co-host Jay Kang both have backgrounds in journalism, but unlike many no-coiner journalists, we also believe that to really understand crypto, you have to hold coins, you have to trade coins, you have to do all of the bullshit that people go through to understand it. And I've learned a lot from you about it, Brian. And our show, I think, is like documenting the journey of some noobs who make a lot of mistakes and are pretty open about it. So if you're listening and that sounds a little bit like you, check out Coin Talk.
So you're still the media elite, but you're not the no coiner media elite.
We're the future media elite when the blockchain owns it all. We're planning to be the Uber journalists of the future.
Although I think Jay's portfolio at this point in time is limited to what he uses for gambling.
I would say Jay is or is not a no coiner, depending on what happened in the World Cup this week. So
how his parlays going?
I think actually, are you a World Cup guy? Do you do World Cup?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I've been ignorant of pretty much everything going on in the world ever since I got into crypto. So it's not limited to sports and soccer.
Okay, well, I think we're going to do a little, I'm going to try and convince Jay to do a mini World Cup Bitcoin gambling spectacular. We got the knockout round starting on Monday. We're going to check out all those and some good prop bets that are out there, Golden Boot, etc.
Nice. Well, I'm sure it'll be good. It's one of those podcasts where I don't miss an episode. So I hope that listeners of Ledgercast also have the Coin Talk show in their podcast apps. Where can they go to subscribe?
Yeah, you go to medium.com/coin talk, has actually all of our episodes and transcripts, all the episodes. So you can also read it. Medium is a partner on it. So that's good stuff. Cool. All right. We'll talk to you soon, Brian.
All right. Thanks for coming on. And we'll see y'all on both of these shows at a later date. By the way, I'm scrolling through EOStracker.io, which is the block explorer, and I'm seeing like one transaction per like page of blocks. Granted, these go like every second, like these blocks just fly on EOS.
Yeah, two per second, 2 per millisecond or something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you go to transactions, if you click the next thing down, it'll show you
that way you see
the actual
the time
blocks
between
with
them.
transactions. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's getting maybe a couple of transactions a minute at most.
Yeah. But the other issue with EOS is it's like super expensive to create a private key. Right now, it's hard to create a private key right now. It's the classic Larimer project, right? Like just complete dumpster fire from the get-go. And I go into that in the article, but
yeah, maybe dumpster fire, but they've got a lot of money and a lot of people that are incentivized to build on it. So I don't know. It's one of those ones where it's easy to hate on, but there's a lot of interest in it. So sometimes you gotta build it so that they will come.
I'll trade it, but I expected them to be way more prepared than they are. They had a year. They had more than a year, let's be honest. And it's like, it's Bush League shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If I was actually a member of the community, like and a believer in the project, I would be super pissed off.
I think another thing that is interesting to me about EOS is, Ethereum got that clearance that it's no longer a security or whatever. But EOS seems at risk in a big way for the same type of judgment, except without the friendly outcome.
EOS was a security, I think, just from the get-go. I mean, it was not to be, what's it called? You couldn't even be a U.S. investor, but the problem was it was still listed on exchanges that aren't security regulatory level exchanges. So like they could be dinged there.
Yeah, that's my point. Like it seems at heavy risk, because if it starts getting delisted by, exchanges where Americans trade, then
like who cares though? Like there aren't any exchanges really that Americans can trade on. It's not on Coindesk, Coinbase.
Yeah,
it probably will never be. It's on Bitfinex, but Americans can't really trade there for the most part.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's on, I don't think it's on Bittrex. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. I still think it would get dinged though if someone from the SEC did say, "Hey, this is a security and Americans should beware," you know, because one thing I've also heard is if you build something on a security, then whatever you build is likely going to be classified as security as well.
That's interesting.
So, kind of disincentivizes people with dApps to build on EOS. If what I've heard in that regard is true. But that was something I heard on some other podcast pretty recently.
I wonder if a DAC or DAO could be a security. I don't know if they've come out right and said that. They said the DAO wasn't it, in the SEC thing like a while back?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure they said it was a security.
I still think though, even though Ethereum like came clean or whatever, because of the statements that the SEC made, I still feel like there's a lot of gray area there. And we're probably on the verge of a new version of like how all this gets done, right? So like the SAFT was popular, the Marco Santori thing that you talked about in your article, and it seems like we're kind of moving on from that now. Like that's not really the route that a lot of people are going. But it just seems like ever evolving. You know, I've seen several people say, like, these are people that are like running exchanges or whatnot, and they're like, the people that are getting rich in this market right now are the lawyers, because you're just constantly trying to navigate these regulatory waters.
It's a redistribution back to the lawyers.
Yeah,
so we really don't know that much anyway, because there isn't really that much out there. I mean, they can say whether or not it passes the Howey test and then be done with it. But
yeah, so there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, in the token markets, the platforms that are working on that, even though there's a lot of people building things. I think you told me this maybe first, and I've heard it since as well, which was basically that, you know, if bearish news doesn't hurt the price very much, then it's a sign of a bull market. And if you continuously get bullish news and it's not lifting the price, then it's a sure sign that you're in a bear market. And I would say on the Bitcoin side of things, especially, there's been like a lot of good, fundamentally bullish news, like things that you and I talked about last year. But obviously, we're not seeing any reflection of that bullish news in the price. So is that just further confirmation to you that like there's no new money interested in coming in right now, and we're just trying to consolidate in a bear trend, and that's that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no FOMO really for retail right now, although I can tell, just based on anecdotal people that I talk to.
But like some of like the prototypes from the Lightning Network, for instance, like if that stuff had come out in 2017, you would have seen $500 and $1,000 candles off that news, right?
I guess, but like, I'm a believer in the Lightning Network, but at the end of the day, what does it really do for anybody at the moment? Does anybody use it? Like it's being built and it's coming online and it has a future, but at the moment, I just don't see it like being super impactful.
You're seeing prototypes that it can work, right?
Yeah, but until it like is needed. But it's good. It's obviously amazing that it's a thing and it's being built out. But until it's needed, I feel like it's not going to be like if we had that during the fee crisis in the 2017 spam attack, like it'd be a different story. It'd just be game over.
Okay, so basically you're saying because we're in a bear market, therefore transactions are not expensive. Something that makes transactions cheap and instant doesn't matter anymore, at least for the moment. Basically,
I mean, why even bother with all the transactions I've sent in the past few months have just been super quick and super cheap.
Yeah,
why even bother?
I sent something for like 4 cents the other day. It was the first transaction I'd done in a while, and I sent it, I guess, SegWit to SegWit, and it was extremely cheap.
Yeah, I sent like 3 things to one wallet and then pre-sent that amount again, and it all cleared within like 10 minutes. I was like, this is weird. This is crazy.
Yeah. This is
like I was not expecting it to be that quick. Like I had to like triple check to make sure it went through because it just happened so fast.
Yeah. So what are you thinking in terms of potential catalysts or potential bottoms? You don't seem convinced that we've reached bottom, but you do.
I'm the technicals look good for a bottom, based on the 12-hour, based on the Wyckoff stuff in Bitcoin. With the other stuff like Neo, like there's so much stuff that just like 90% retraced and just so oversold that I think it's worth, if you're like willing to go fishing a little bit, it's worth to just buy and hold for 6 months. And I think you'll be okay. It's definitely not flipping trend wise though, which is a scary time to buy when you're not even catching knives at this point. You're kind of like bailing out a sinking ship and hoping somebody comes to rescue you,
Right.
Because nothing is bullish. I mean, there's the BNB token and there's ETC, which are probably the two, and there's DGB, whatever the hell DGB is.
Digibyte.
Yeah, but
the fastest blockchain
Digibyte?
That's been around the longest.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's like I said before, there's like these rolling pump and dumps that bots just pile in on Binance and whatever. So to me, I lose my edge with that because I don't know what to buy and hold. I don't know what to do. I mean, there are people who can do that effectively, but I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where I've found something where I felt pretty confident in the trade. Like it was just way too far from the mean and it moved way too quickly. For instance, I was able to buy some Tezos over the counter just the other day. And it was basically at the bottom, right? And it doesn't mean I necessarily think that was the bottom for Tezos. It just launched a beta. Tokens were just released, but it just seemed like the people that were convinced, like they just had to dump their Tezos right away. Like they went ahead and capitulated. So I was able to capture a local bottom. And I think it may still be up around 50%, but I think it went up like 60% off of my buy price and like almost double from its very bottom. Like it went from like 15 or 18 KSATs where it was there for a minute. I got it at like 21.5 or so. And it went back up between the 30 to 40 KSATs range, which that's a nice trade. For me though, every time I've done one like that where I was pretty happy, I've had others where I thought I was buying something similar and it was just kept getting pounded, Like I rebought
like Salt.
Oh God, Salt.
Poly.
So I did okay on Poly. So I ended up being all out on Poly as it was failing some of the recoveries up top. Like I didn't sell the top. I think I only sold like 15, 20% at like the top of Poly. But when it failed, it was painting like this Head and Shoulders and it went and retested it and it failed that and I just sold it all. And I was terribly afraid that I was selling like the bottom basically. And then it went on to more than half from there. Unfortunately, for like I would consider that a successful one because I ended up with over a double on it. But then you have a Salt where you buy in on what you feel like is confirmation of bullishness, and then it loses like 60% of its value.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're buying a sinking ship, But you just have to have the mentality of I know it's going down. It's probably not going to be this low 6 months from now.
Yeah. I sold the rest of my Poly around here, this like 92 to 95 region.
Perfect. Based on the cloud. Look at that.
Yeah. I trusted the TA instead of my gut because my gut has been really poor recently. And it broke off. I've been looking at almost everything in the 6 hour time frame. I've been really liking 6, 12 and daily. But anyway, this just was like, wow. Well, when it fell off that again, I'm out of there. As much as it hurt, sometimes if you get a win, you take the win, like the idea of saying, hey, we're going to have a 10X and all that stuff in a market like this, if you're making 30%, 50% on a trade, you've done damn well. If you're getting a double, then you hit a home run in a bear market. It at least feels like that. But for everyone I've had like this, where I avoided all that junk down to the bottom, I've had others where I haven't done as well. Like I just recently bought back Wanchain. There's a chart that looks very much like Poly. And I think the problem that I had with this one was it's still pretty well above the ICO price. And I've talked about this a good bit, where you're buying something where someone else is still pretty well in profit and has plenty of room to continue capitulation, right? It becomes too much for them to handle, so therefore they dump it finally. So in this case, I bought, I think I bought around 44, 47, something like that, which was roughly where it had accumulated and started its up move the first time around. And then it went on to make a lower low, broke those lows, and now it looks like it's doing it again. And I'm hoping for some form of divergence and double bottom and escape. And these are just like these channels of death that hurt really bad. So if you have to balance out your wins versus your losses, you have to be willing to cut your losses quicker. I've been learning a lot about that in terms of the opposite end of the market cycle, right? So on the down market cycle, if your only opportunity is to go long, like these don't have margin markets, most of these altcoins, so you can only long via spot. So you either have to play the momentum off of Bitcoin, or you have to find these capitulation moments where you can capture a temporary reversal. But every single time on these, when the market is down, until we decorrelate, that's what I want to move to. Until we decorrelate, then altcoins are basically just going to have incredible selling pressure on them, because you've always essentially got someone capitulating or taking profit or whatever else and creating immense amounts of selling pressure. So that's been really interesting to work through and identify how it alters the trade.
I think most people on aggregate are fleeing altcoins for Tether or Bitcoin. If you look at ratios, like that ratio just getting destroyed.
This is just like I got this channel drawn on Wanchain. It's just like this death channel. And this is by altcoin and ICO standards, I would say this one has really strong fundamentals. Whereas, unfortunately, with Salt, I ended up bag holding something that I don't like at all.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentals for any project are questionable in my opinion, so I wouldn't hold that to a flame.
Yeah, well, you don't believe in the fundamentals of any altcoin, so
pretty much project. So what was I going to say? Something about buying that channel after it breaks out, like the Bitcoin channel, I think is an okay buy, because then there's at least some evidence of life. But buying that when it's in the channel like that is
pretty nasty.
Tough. Plus, like you're saying with the taking profit, being aggressive with that, I've said this before, but it feels like I'm in run and gun mode. If you're a margin, especially, you got your RCP 90 and you're playing GoldenEye, and you're just taking what you can get in your 4x4 screen game, whatever, in your multiplayer.
Yeah.
That's just like the mindset. Like, I'm happy with 20 to whatever percentage, as long as I don't close at break even. That's a win.
Yeah. I apologize because I'm taking this from someone that I saw on Twitter, and they have some Forex group or something, but their little hashtag that they use for themselves is see profit, take profit. And in Forex, which I feel like, it has all these global political things, but it feels like a much more random market than crypto or equities. So the idea of seeing profit and taking profit makes a lot of sense to me. So when it's on the table, go ahead and take it. Don't seek forever amounts of it, So when you're hitting resistance points, it's probably a good time to sell. And that's a way that you can play the market without completely bleeding, unless you're seeking intentionally some longer term position that you have some different fundamental thesis for. You mentioned Ethereum Classic. You mentioned, what was the other one?
BNB.
BNB as ones that have maintained a bullish bias on the chart. Another one that I would put in that realm that just seems to be really just holding very well is the Basic Attention token. And it's not in an uptrend the same way, but it's not been in the slow death bleeding routine either. So I found that to be super interesting. So if you're
Decred was also actually pretty bullish.
Yeah, Decred was super bullish, and I think it recently hit on supports. So I think it's probably worth looking at being very picky and either accumulating things on the bottom or looking at things that have pretty solid technicals.
Nice wedge.
Yeah, I drew this one the other day.
Not to interrupt you, but I like that with the div there.
Yeah, there's a nice.
That's a spicy little trade.
Yeah, I've had this line on here for a bit, and so Josh is describing for listeners. Decred has this kind of funky looking falling wedge that doesn't have a lot of touch points, but it's got a pretty clear RSI divergence on the daily, and it tapped just into the well of breaking supports, which sometimes I think is more bullish than bearish, because you have somebody that says, oh, I'm going to buy, up here on the supports. And if you dip down into that a little bit, then you can shake some people out of the trade.
That's still one of my favorite trades, the falling or rising wedges with divergences. Just beautiful.
And I think, again, that's another example. Like in a market like this, you really want to check as many boxes as possible versus being bullish by default, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the market's just not very bullish.
No.
So you need a lot of stuff in your favor. When I commented about this chart on Twitter, my note there was, I really do like this Decred setup. I think I said so yesterday. The downside is that, Decred it's retraced 30% from the lows, whereas a lot of coins are like 100% retraced versus Bitcoin. So that could be viewed as
the other part of that is the other part of it is back to your ICO thing. Like the newer ICOs are probably more likely. I don't know the stats on this, but they're probably more likely to have been capitulated recently versus BAT, which is a pretty old ICO.
Yeah, that
is sort of holding its value. I think there's a correlation there that can't be looked past because, like you were saying, there's still people in heavy profit from ICOs that just happened versus ICOs from like 2016 where, the people who have sold off have kind of sold off. The people who got in at a quarter and it's at $2 have kind of made peace with that or whatever. But I think that's why you're seeing some of these hold up.
Yeah, I think that's right. The other thing I think is if I was to count, if we're like talking about these BNB, Decred, BAT, ZRX, the ones that have held up price wise are also some of the most fundamentally strong projects in the space. With on the whole, I think each of those has at least a year of history, right? So like they're not only fundamentally promising, they're fundamentally like showing some, some real progress, right?
Sure, and even Augur's launching their mainnet.
That's a great example. I've been meaning to put its rep is the ticker for Augur. I've been meaning to put that on my primary watch list because they're launching. Do you know a lot about Augur? It's the prediction.
I don't. I just know they've been launching forever, like soon, But yeah, it's a prediction market. It's like it sounds cool in theory, right?
Yeah, and my understanding is that this is probably one of the most ambitious projects ever put on Ethereum. Of course, that's probably something like the founder of Augur said on Twitter.
Yeah. You drinking that Kool-Aid, I see.
Yeah. But again,
I mean, I hold rep. I'm holding it.
Yeah. Look, I'm looking at the chart right now. It's got higher lows, and it's not down in the trenches. So there is opportunity on those ones that are just completely depressed. You can buy them cheap if you feel like they do have strong fundamentals, but the market is identifying strong fundamentals in some coins as well by not giving them the same degree of retracement. Like we're seeing that pretty clearly on these ones that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think if someone's looking at altcoins, try to consider some of those factors. I like this chart a lot.
Pretty messy, but
yeah.
I don't know. Are they? They're not their own blockchain, right? I can't remember.
I think this one is still going to be on Ethereum because I saw a note about some of the Ethereum decentralized exchanges that are going to continue to support it.
Okay.
So I think it's still.
That's the other question. Like, do tokens ever become coins, or are they always tokens? Like, what's the cutoff? Do they become coins when they have their own blockchain?
Yeah, we had this conversation. I think in Telegram, maybe.
Yeah.
But the idea of what is a token versus what is a coin. I consider the offshoots of things with the primary blockchain to be tokens. I guess a coin, they're all kind of coins as well. We wouldn't call them shit coins if they weren't, right? But
I don't know. I never liked the term crypto assets because to me that's just too ambiguous.
Speak.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. There's a theory. They call Ethereum a crypto asset, but
yeah,
whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think Augur is some kind of, we're hilariously undereducated on Augur.
But I know the mainnet is coming.
But I think it's a mainnet. I think it's a mainnet on a side chain, so it'll always be within the Ethereum ecosystem, right? Similar to the way ZRX works. ZRX is the side chain of Ethereum, so I think Augur works in the same way. Always capable of running on the Ethereum ecosystem, therefore able to be supported as an ERC20 token, I assume.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things I was talking about in the last Ethereum article was there's all these mainnets that are coming, not mainnets, but tokens that are launching on Ethereum. And the scaling hasn't really caught up with the need, I don't think. And yes, transactions are down all over the place, but I'd be concerned at a high level if all these projects go online and there's no way to scale because all these projects need transactions on chain. So how's that going to happen?
Settlement on chain, at least.
Or settlement on chain, yeah. So does that mean Ethereum, their fees are going to go way up? Are their pending transactions going to go way up?
I think their network's been slow even in the downturn because, like you said, more of these are coming online.
Yeah, there's some issues with gas usage that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Gas price can be low, but the percentage.
I would say Ethereum scaling, I thought was going to be a little faster than it's been. It's really been pretty slow. Maybe I just was misreading it last year, but my understanding was that they were 6 months or less away from several of the scaling things that were supposed to make it significantly better. In terms of preparing for that, one of the things that I've heard people talk about, people that are building, whether it's decentralized exchanges, which are right now probably the top application on Ethereum, they are definitely the top application. But even even other projects is they're trying to build them to where they have their own API layer so that you can essentially use their platform. Say someone's integrating with the Augur API or something. I don't know how that all works, but if there's an Augur API that they can interact with, they just interact with Augur's API. And then if Augur needs to switch off of Ethereum, if Augur becomes a popular platform and Ethereum can't support it, then they can adjust their underlying mechanisms to run off of something else. And additionally, a lot of other platforms, one of the strategies they're using is to make them compatible with Solidity so that it's actually relatively straightforward to migrate off of Ethereum. So that doesn't necessarily mean any of the other ones are good either, or yet, scalable yet. But if they don't have 80% of the world's applications on them, then an app that gets popular could say, okay, well, we're going to move over to this one because no one else is over there and we can scale over there and our app's taking off. So we need it to work. So here's how we're going to do it.
Especially when you look at that ERC20 chart again versus all tokens, and you see like 90% of the market cap is ERC20. Some of those have a blockchain of their own, sure, but most of those are going to be on top of Ethereum. It's like having 1 million people in a city without urban planning. It's just like it's gonna be chaos. Like I could just feel it. Which is why I was also saying in the article on Ethereum last week that it's best to figure out these scaling issues while things are quiet, obviously, because then you're not pressured into doing things. But that's not how human nature usually works.
Yeah.
Anyway, look at like BIP, whatever the Bitcoin UASF thing that went through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to finish up the show by getting your prediction.
33K. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, you're pretty committed to this Wyckoff picture, which I can't. There it is. This Wyckoff idea, which it would call the recent lows that we had down in 5,700 a spring to a move up.
All I'm saying is check the Wyckoff, the traditional thing. Like, it fits too well.
It is. It's ridiculous. It's like somebody's painting it.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a few Wyckoff people who exclusively do Wyckoff, and they've kind of both said that it'd be too clean. Like, it's too perfect in the current state. So we could have multiple support tests and then have a spring. Like, it could just keep going. It doesn't have to be that clean, but
yeah.
I mean, it looks good. Even if you look on the traditional Wyckoff thing, there's a inverted head and shoulders in the spring, just as we have now. So,
although to me, there's no right shoulder. It's like a wedge.
You know, there's so many people who are like, this chart pattern is not perfect. I do not believe in chart patterns.
I don't like head and shoulders very much, personally.
That's fine. So I do have a chart pattern article coming from Brave New Coin, but what I say in there is that for the most part, volume is number one, most important as far as the check boxes for chart patterns, which we have currently in this inverted situation. And sometimes the fractals aren't perfect. You know, if you look at the inverted head and shoulders we had in, I think it was April at the bottom, that was like 3 or 4 shoulders before it finally broke out above the neckline on the right side. So we could get that same sort of situation here.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So
I'll say this much. I will be taking that trade probably within the next couple of days, especially based on the 12-hour cloud.
I do like the 12-hour cloud now. I have reasons for bullishness. I just don't 100% buy the right shoulder component of that head and shoulders, nor do I think I don't know that in the bear market we've seen a very good head and shoulders. And what I was able to draw, and I don't know if I have it right here, but to me it looks like we have a rising wedge without a right shoulder. So like it's the right side of the head, if anything. And perhaps looking at September futures for some reason. It's okay. But perhaps we break down from the wedge and create the right shoulder on your side. But I would like to see it maintain either the 0.382 or the 0.5 retrace is my point.
That's fine. But I mean, even the 6 and 12-hour cloud are telling you be prepared for a long if there's a breakout here with the cloud signals.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like we broke out of the channel from 9.8, right? So that was the first like nice bullish signal. We're actually bullish cloud-wise on the 4-hour, and we're bumping. And we did an edge-to-edge trade on the 6-hour, if anybody was interested. You know, I don't think anybody cares about our edge trades anymore, Josh.
I get so much hate anytime I talk about TA or cloud. It's like, they don't work.
Yeah.
You're bad.
I love
Go
it.
away.
I love
hate your
it.
dirty Jew face. Like, I get all these people, which is like so much salt anyway.
So yeah, on the 6-hour, I've had the 6750 line drawn. I think when we breach above that, like I'd love if we break out from that wedge, But if we break down from the wedge, we fail 6750. To me, the important thing is what velocity is that with and where does it stop? Like if we maintain like a Keynesian bounce or something, or if on that 12-hour, if we stay inside the edge to edge, that kind of thing, I'm gonna be bullish. Currently,
the other thing on that edge to edge on the 12-hour is it's best to wait for the TK bullish cross there.
And we haven't quite
before the entry.
Yeah,
we haven't got there yet. Yeah,
but if we do go edge to edge on that, it looks like the target is 7,500 plus, maybe 8K. So, is that your call? 8K within a week? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I'm gonna have money on it if it holds up. So
yeah. Well, likewise, I'm actually not in any margin positions right now, but I am maintaining altcoin positions, which is at the current correlated state, basically an exaggerated Bitcoin position. So that's my take as well.
I've like mentally capitulated on altcoins as far as like anything I'm holding, I'm just going to look at in December and decide to sell or not. It's just too much to worry about.
I talked about having bought Tezos. I will admit I capitulated on a couple of things that I was just sick of owning and used those to buy Tezos. So now I can take my Tezos profits and buy those back at the same price or a little cheaper even. So we'll see whether I do that or I become a Tezos community member. I'm not sure yet. Anyway. All right, Josh, it was great talking to you. Where should people go to check out what you've got?
Twitter/Carpe Noctem, YouTube/Carpe Noctem, Brave New Coin, news. I think that's it.
And if anybody's going to be in DC, shoot me a message and we'll talk about meeting up at the conference or something. And we'll have a recording of our live chat. That should be a good time. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yeah, man.
We'll catch everybody on the next episode. Have a good one.
Monuments crumble in the blink of an eye. The easy river has just run dry.